Great good morning, everyone. It is a beautiful Monday, September 22nd, 2025. My Cordaro jeweler watch tells me it's 9:14 and change. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he. Broadcasting today from the United States of America. I can prove it because we had a great American like Charlie Kirk, and we honored him as he deserved it. It's also the place where the brave, like the veterans we salute today, thanks to John Basiliga and his great family of companies, because they made us and kept us free. People like veterans we lost this year but celebrate today. James Mack, Dunmore. Louis Leterrio, Dunmore. Donald Quilina, Courtdale. Bruce Bisland, West Scranton. Bob Jennings, Honesdale. And Peter Cunningham, Einan. The United States of America, the country founded with a certain knowledge and understanding by our incredible, irreplaceable, amazing founding fathers, that government is not, shall not be, cannot be our parent, our guide, our salvation, our direction. Not any of these things, but is nothing more than a necessary evil we require to organize and protect society. The United States of America, the country where, for the first time in human history, freedom was declared to be an unalienable right granted to each individual by God. It was not something that could be parceled out to groups. Freedom could not be controlled by government or government officials. And our great American Constitution ensures and codifies all of this freedom, including freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of association, economic freedom, and freedom of the press to do what they wish. It's up to us to be smart enough to discern. Now, armed with these freedoms, and only because they had them, a ragtag bunch of immigrants, rejects, and their progeny created the richest, most powerful, most culturally diverse and accepting nation ever to grace our planet Earth. America, the only place specifically invented and designed so that every American can live their life in the manner they choose, unlimited by their background, upbringing, race, color, or creed, unhindered by the government or those who would use government to control others for their own comfort, benefit, or power. And so, we gavel to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising you that this program will always be convincingly conservative, lovingly logical, proudly and passionately patriotic, and reliably right. And because of our commitment to common sense, we will create a sanctuary of sanity for all of you. We promise. And you need it. Great stuff over the weekend, that service for Charlie Kirk. You hear different comments. Trump was too political. Trump was outstanding. And everybody played their roles. Marco Rubio was amazing. That was really something else. And the crowd, oh my gosh. It's just like we've said about everything. You want to know where the violence comes from? One of the great leaders of the conservative movement of all time gets slain by a left-wing lunatic for left-wing lunatic reasons. Did the conservatives, did the followers, did the religion, did they rape, pillage, loot, destroy, kill, attack, go after the cops? It is the definitive proof the left is lunatic. The left has a complete imbalance, a complete divorce from reality, from truth, from fact. It's scary. There's no like, oh, both sides. No. No. Not possible. Doesn't happen. And here's the proof. That was the proof. Oh, yeah. Are there goofy people on both sides? That statement can be made. But is violence acceptable? Is violence, hatred, part of the package? For the left, it is. In fact, their entire agenda is either based on outright evil, people who want to control everybody else, or it's based upon failure, lies. Period. Unbelievable. Hey, just a personal aside as we go to break. I had a grandson over the weekend, and it was a long slog for my poor daughter-in-law. I'm praying and hoping she's resting well today. But there's one more of us in this world, and isn't that the way of the world? We bury Charlie Kirk, and then there's a beautiful birth. Quite astonishing, the life we lead, isn't it? Let's take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We'll be back. I never heard that song before. The Coasters. Murph tells us this date, 1956. They debuted with their first hit single. One kiss led to another on Likey. Somebody says, Erica Kirk said the answer to hate is not hate, yet here you go again, sad. What are you even talking about? By the way, if the assassination of Charlie Kirk didn't make anything clear for anyone who had a brain, it made clear this fact. Just because you don't like the truth doesn't mean it's hate speech. You can't make that up. You can't make it up. Oh, you hate to hear it. No, well, that doesn't mean it's hate speech. That means it's truth that for some reason you can't handle. Why, I don't know. Dear Lord. And again, please tell me something I said that wasn't true. There's a core of hatred, evil, and guaranteed government control of people's lives on the left. That's a guarantee. You're going to ignore human nature? We're going to ignore fact, truth, and reality? Is that how we're going to do this? By the way, another appointee of our great mayor in Scranton, Cognetti, went off the rails, apparently. Did a lockdown of school? Dear Lord. Yes, your judgment is so great about people like posing with drug dealers who opened their front business. Yeah, because she doesn't know any better. Look you're a left-wing lunatic, and that's your philosophy. Then you've got to be missing a lot of truth, fact, and reality. And that's just the way it is. Crazy. Oh, Lord. Somebody said, here's a good perspective, Deb from Dallas. They see it as hatred because the truth points out their sin. Well, no, and it points out their stupidity, and then it gets into ego. Quite amazing. To try, by the way, somebody pointing out, speaking of stupidity, there was no Chris Kelly hate column yesterday. Was he suspended? I have no idea. I've heard nothing about it. And by the way, I don't look for his columns because after I read one of them, unless there are rare instances when it's about someone in the community and for some reason his extreme mental illness doesn't make him wander into Trump. But I don't look for his columns because you leave after reading them a little dumber and a little bit more dispirited than you were before you read them. That's what they provide. Quite amazing. All right. But, yeah, this is the problem with the left. Anything that they disagree with, anything that points out their failure of their philosophy, that points out the stupidity of their agenda for regular people, they hate. And then they act on that hate, as we now know. And we could cite the instances, we could line them up on the runway. There was actually I don't know, he's actually pretty good normally, an anchor for what, I don't know if it was OAN or News Nation, one of them. And he was actually saying that remember the nightclub killer in Orlando? Saying he was right-wing. No, he was a left-wing lunatic. Because, again, falling in love with that agenda and that philosophy, it's mental illness, period. How far is it from a point at which you react? It's not that far of a leap. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. A friend of mine, Billy Colville, gave me this, gave me a really cute. It's Keep America Great with Donald Trump on it. It's like a coin. Neat. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. I'm Pop. That's what the grandkids call me. I'm Pop to another. And one more coming. One more due. We'll take a break and be back. Our veterans this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you by John Basiliga, a true patriot, and his great family of companies. The first of which, and the biggest of which, Eastern Roofing Systems. Jessup, PA, one of the premier roofing companies in the eastern United States, commercial, institutional. And they take all that expertise and they'll bring it to your house or your small building here in Northeast Pennsylvania. Eastern Roofing Systems. Peter Cunningham. He was 92 when he passed September 10th. He was from Einan. Graduate of Harford High School. Class of 50. Served us in the U.S. Army. Stationed in Germany. Lifetime member of the Ambrose Rebels, American Legion Post, Archibald. He left the military in 1954 and then became an employee of Bell Telephone and Verizon for 40 years. Hunting, snowmobiles, bowling, golfing. 1957, he married Louise Solitsky, and he always said she was the love of his life. They had been married for 68 years at his passing. He's survived by 3 children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, tragically preceded in death by an infant daughter, Mary, and many other family members. Peter Cunningham. Here's a guy I knew for a long time. Robert Francis Bob Jennings, Honesdale. He died September 14th at the age of 93. Born in Honesdale, bred in Honesdale, graduate of Honesdale High School. Drafted in the U.S. Army. They quickly identified his lifelong skills as a photographer. Bob said, a photograph tells the truth. At age 14, he sold his first news photograph of a fatal plane crash in Wayne County to the Scranton Times, where he began part-time work. He then joined the Times photographic staff full-time in 1951. A different day and age in newspapers. Mr. Jennings had reported a basic training at Camp Stewart, Georgia. His bosses, however, figured this guy's one hell of a photographer. So the 22-year-old corporal became the personal photographer of the general in command, A.R. Bowling. He left the Army in 55, holding the rank of sergeant. Attended Empire State College, the State University of New York. He continued his education, taking courses that included evidence photography from the FBI and criminal and investigative photography at Eastman Kodak. Mr. Jennings served as Wayne County Deputy Coroner for 8 years and then as coroner for 20 years. Also the owner of Jennings Photography on Main Street in Honesdale. Really had an incredible life. It's too much to capture, even in an obituary. Even in this tribute. He was on Honesdale's Borough Council, where he served for many years. Sadly, he was preceded in death by his wife of 65 years, the former Barbara Strassel, in 2021. Survived by a daughter, son, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and other family members. Honesdale's Bob Jennings. Our great veterans this hour brought to you by John Basiliga and Eastern Roofing Systems in Jessup. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Snedeker. Today, partly sunny with a chance of a late day shower, 77 degrees. Tonight, partly cloudy, 60. Tuesday, morning sun, then cloudy with on and off showers and thunderstorms, 75. Wednesday, clouds and breaks of sun with a chance of a shower, 75 degrees. Over 100,000 people for Charlie Kirk's funeral in Arizona yesterday, Glendale. And that was Brandon Johnson. I'm telling you, please, somebody provide evidence that he is not mentally ill. Take any one of them. Take any leading Democrat politician. By the way, I'll say except John Fetterman, but he votes like a lunatic. Just listen to what they say. Listen to what they claim to believe. And I only say claim to believe not because you can't doubt what someone says over and over and over again, but you want to say, but wait a minute, is he completely mentally ill and he's out there functioning in society, being elected to office? What we admiringly called forever our second city, Chicago. I mean, it's pure insanity. He says, LTS, Bob, when our guy gets killed, we pray and burn candles. When their guy gets killed, they riot and burn city. Therein lies the stark difference between them and us, says Jimmy from Harvey's Lake. But wait a minute. Let's go a little further here, Jimmy. It's worse than that. The guy that they raped and pillaged and looted and burned for was a career criminal drug addict. That's who they put up statues for. That's who they painted murals of, George Floyd. We love him as a human being, but he wasn't much of one. A guy who died from asphyxiation from overdose of fentanyl that he was trying to hide from the police when he got arrested for another crime. This is their idol. Again, it gets worse every time you analyze it. They're bleeding and fighting and battling for criminals who've come into this country illegally. This is what they fight for. That's insane. So they've got to be treated with compassion as human beings, but some of them are acting on insanity. There's the mayor of Chicago. He's insane. He needs serious help. I don't know. We'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK, Monday Musings today. And, of course, our man Chet Parlavecchio is going to be analyzing what happened over the weekend in football. We'll do all of that coming up as the program unfolds. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. Murph tells us this date, 1964. Herman's Hermits had the #1 hit in the UK. I'm into something good. Bob Cordaro, WILK. Cinderblock checking in. He says, I'm here to inform you that what Charlie Kirk said was hate speech, as seen through the eyes of all the liberals. It's human nature to hate being told that you're wrong. Number 2, every position that liberals hold is factually, scientifically, morally, and intellectually wrong. Number 3, Charlie Kirk told people they were wrong. 4, liberals hated that. Number 5, Cinderblock says, a liberal picked the worst response to answer for being told his views were wrong. If you just turn off your brain, I'm sure it makes perfect sense. Yeah. It's so sadly true. Somebody else pointing out, Bob, not one mention of the celebration of Charlie Kirk's life in the Scranton Rag of a newspaper. How could that might actually be journalism? Somebody said, I listened to the full speeches of a number at Charlie Kirk Memorial Service after listening to Christian religion being suppressed since the 70s. In a leftist attempt to remove religion, at least Christianity, from schools, public and government, and more, it was truly great to hear so many in our government speak freely and rightly the name of Jesus Christ in their dialogue. And I don't want it to turn into a theocracy, but we're based on God, our Constitution, all of it, the Declaration of Independence itself. All right, let's go to the phones. Quickly, we got Luciano. Hi, Luciano. How are you, man?
Thank you, Bob, for taking my call. Yes, Friday when I was, thank the good Lord, I was able to get feedback from my mother and father, which are still alive. But I heard your program Friday. I was so irritated, agitated, whatever adjective you want to have. Let me ask you this. This ain't directly at you because you're completely a different type of white person, gentleman, than most white people that have never been through the stress and trauma you've been through. But why is there a need, the callers that called you Friday, a need to apologize and say that why do people defend migrants and illegal invasion? Why can't you just tell how the fox ate the chicken? Why do you have to walk on eggshells? And why do you have to say, but they're so nice, they're so kind, they come here only to work? Give me a break, Bob. I need to.
Well,
no,
a lot of that, you admit,
ahead,
you have to understand this. A lot
Yes.
of that is true about the illegals in this country. The vast majority of them would be of benefit to this country, but you can't do it the wrong way and expect it to turn out the right way. The way previous waves of immigration have occurred. It's a critical part of this country's growth and development. And
wait a minute, Bob.
They're ruining it by making illegal mean nothing.
There you go. And I'm saying this with all due respect. I talked to a black conservative Catholic yesterday. He repeats the same thing. Why is it that we've murdered over 46 million American citizens of all race, colors, and creeds, and we need to deport foreigners? And yes, foreigners, the Numbers Association, USA Heritage Foundation says the amount of migrants have surpassed historically any historical throughout the 195 countries. We've surpassed the countries, and physically, and we cannot support that stress on our country. They are bringing more burden to this country. 80% of the invasion came from Latino countries, my countries, India, China, and Bob. White guilt, you should not fear white guilt. You should not walk around feeling sorry and say migrants. We're a country that did it the right way. Legal citizens.
Legal immigrants.
We did it. I was born in Philadelphia.
It's not complicated.
That's where it started.
Luciano,
brother.
It's not complicated. It's very straightforward. Legal immigration is good.
Forgive me.
That's okay. Are you kidding? Legal immigration is good. Illegal immigration is bad. That's why it's illegal.
And that's why it's toxic, brother.
Yep, you know it, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe from Berwick. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, hey, good, Bob. Just a quick follow-up to your last call. I can tell you, unfortunately, with what's gone on with one young native-born men in this country, if we don't have some form of immigration, a lot of construction jobs in this country would come to almost a complete stop because there are so few of our own who even want to work. And that just is what it is. Now, a follow-up to a call you had last week, Bob, where you were talking about the Latimer Mine Massacre.
Yes.
I grew up in Hazleton. I'm very familiar with this area. Spent a lot of time there. I go back there every year hunting, okay? First of all, when he said there's no active coal mines in that area, it's only partly right. There is, if you go in that area and you try going off-road there through some of that area, you will be stopped by a nice gentleman with a light on his car asking what you're doing because there are operations going through there from the mines. Where it's coming from is over the other side of the mountain in the Stockton area. Since I was there when I was young, they built two different operations there where they started mining again with I'm guessing with the shovel mining, the surface mining. One of the names that comes to my mind that I've seen personally is Atlantic Carbon Group, and I'm not sure if there's another one because I know there are two different operations. There are two different buildings, big buildings they built. I know I stopped in and I talked to one day to find out where it'd be okay for me to hunt in that area, and the gentleman I talked to told me that the people who own his operation, coal mine operation, was actually a British group. So that was interesting. So there is technically still coal mining going on, but it's going through the area when they transport it and they mine it on the other side of the mountain.
Yeah, very limited. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yep. Now the other thing is too. He was talking about where that monument is. There's a little town there called Jetto. And the Jetto people are really, really proud of their baseball team. I guess they won a state championship or they've had some success through the years. And you go through that little town of Jetto and you'll see signs and monuments to the Jetto Stars everywhere. It's a little league team. And I think when he was talking about that monument there, I passed it a million times, but I can see it in my head, but I think that monument where he's talking about where the road splits is actually in that little town called Jetto, which is just like right outside, in that whole Latimer area. And you also have a little patch town there, a coal town. And, I would know it every time off the top of my head because I'm on Eckley Miners Village. Mm-hmm. If you go to Eckley Miners Village right in that same area, they have historical buildings still there. Like they have buildings and stuff set up where somebody explains to you what people live like when they worked in the mines and they were struggling for union and other protections. So you have people who live in this Eckley Miners Village, like they're modern houses, but you have part of the town that's preserved and set aside to educate people about, life as a coal miner. Yeah. And there is like a small fee because it's like an actual park and monument and whatnot. But it's a really fascinating place to visit. And one last thing, if somebody knows what the name of it, be interesting to hear. In that area, Latimer, when I was a kid, there used to be a butcher shop. It's probably closed now. But they had great product, and they used to make these hot dogs that I remember my parents always used to say, these are real hot dogs. This isn't the junk you buy from the stores. And we used to get that as kids, and I don't remember the name of it, but if any of you listeners know, maybe they can call in with the name. Yeah, in Latimer, yeah.
All right. Well, more than a monument in Latimer. Thank you, Joe. Pleasure.
Yeah.
Always. It's time for the news. In fact, it's past time for the news. Bob Cordaro, WILK. I look at my Ricardo Jewelers watch, and they've got every kind. Raymond Wild, Breitling, Oris, Longines, Michelle, Shinola, Luminox, Swiss Army, Seiko, Tory Burch, Victorinox, and more, as they say, including my fine Picardo Jewelers watch timepiece, which says Picardo's on it. I love it. We'll be back. It's 10:03. Great good morning, everyone. My Picardo's Jeweler Watch tells me it's 10:10. Wait a minute. 10:11 on the nose here in the great Northeast. This beautiful Monday, September 22nd, year of our Lord 2025. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he. And it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and with the help of our man, John Basiliga, and his great companies, including Eastern Roofing Systems and Jessup, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we've lost, but celebrate today. Like Bob Jennings, Honesdale, Peter Cunningham, Einan, Bruce Bisland, West Scranton, Donald Colina, Courtdale, James Mack, Dunmore, Louis Leterio, Dunmore. So with history, our great founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order, this meeting of the Club for Common Sense. Somebody texted in, why would you call the mayor of Chicago insane or left-wing lunatics? Don't you understand the meaning of the words? I understand it very well. And I'm going to read the meaning of insanity to you. But they asked, don't you understand the destructive nature of using these words? Do you understand the destructive nature of not using these words? And the listener continues, with all political violence, this can't be your answer. Make a change, I beg of you. So you're asking me to pretend someone on the left, like the mayor of Chicago, is normal. You're asking me to do that. In the name of what? I'm not calling for violence against him. I'm calling for votes against him. He's sick. Here's the definition of insane. In a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. The second meaning is shocking or outrageous. Please tell me where the mayor of Chicago, the governor of Illinois, the governor of New York, all the leaders, the Democrat leaders of the House and Senate, the squad, tell me where they don't meet up with that word. And if I could say worse words, I would. You can't cuss on the radio, at least not for long. I don't understand. I'm going to repeat it again. The definition of insane. And then I want to know where that word falls short in describing Democrat politicians, in this case, the mayor of Chicago. In a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. I actually look up words that I use. If you tell me where I'm wrong, and I will listen. I doubt I will find that you're correct. And we do not call for any violence on this show. We are against any violence. I'm pointing out, again, they're incapable of listening. These lefties. I'm pointing out that there was no violence after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but after the assassination of a career criminal in the midst of a crime who died because of fentanyl overdose, the political coroner and powers that be in that left-wing city of Minneapolis lied to pretend it was what Chauvin did that killed him. What Chauvin did was stupid, but it was protocol. So I really don't know what you're talking about. Wow. Hey, it's Monday, and I've spent enough of his time and he can't say hello in 3 minutes. It's our man, John Perillo, Monday Musings. How are you, John?
I'm not as amused as you are, so.
Oh, amazing.
No, it's been a crazy couple of news weeks, and I did want to go back to some other things because there are other things going on in the news, and I wanted to take a quick look back at something I'd said earlier about us being the largest market in the world, but even that has its limitations. And if you remember the Vlasic pickle example I had a couple of weeks back, Vlasic signed a deal with Walmart, which was the largest retailer in the U.S., which is the largest market in the world, and it eventually bankrupted them. And said, well, the current administration has used our markets as a cudgel to influence our adversaries and our allies, and that's all good and fine. It's a very big stick, and some people sometimes need a whack on the head on occasion. But I pointed out that it's important to remember that, as Kissinger reminds us, countries will act to reduce uncertainty, and our ability to influence them is not static. So our lever this week isn't the same as our lever next week, because countries will work for security no matter where that comes from, and that means that alliances can and do shift. And along those lines, there's a recent story that didn't get any attention, but it's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. India just announced that it would attend and participate with Russia and Belarus in joint military exercises. Now, the participation is small, and you could probably should call it symbolic, but symbols matter, and it was a symbol that was clearly intended for the U.S. So I'm going to give you another sea story like Vlasic pickles. The sea story is something we Navy folks refer to as a illustrative story. I was working for GE back when GE was one of the largest companies in the world. And, they made Walmart look small by comparison. And I was in charge of some transportation negotiations. And FedEx was there. And FedEx wasn't my direct responsibility, but there were many millions of dollars at stake. And we were pushing FedEx very hard to reduce their rates because we used them a lot. And things got a bit heated, as typically happens in GE negotiations. So we called for a break. And when we come back in the room, in the middle of the conference room table, there was a model of the FedEx cargo plane with what were obviously hastily applied GE meatballs. That's the GE logo in the circle, on the model's engine covers. So, okay, point taken. We took what we had and we walked away because I'm glad I didn't have to report back to Jack Welch, who was the CEO at the time, that I've been responsible for losing the GE jet engine account with FedEx. It's just an example of what I'm talking about. No matter how big you are, there are limits to your negotiating leverage. So India should be a natural ally of the U.S. They have been in a border conflict with China for decades, but when we threaten them economically, they're just reminding us that they have options too. And they also just postponed indefinitely some U.S. Joint military exercises as well. So all of this after we announced 50% tariffs on them, which are higher than the tariffs that we have on China, with a mutual adversary. India and China don't get along either, right? Now, again, those tariffs certainly hurt India far more than they hurt us. But India needs energy, and they're signaling that they will act in their own interest, which is entirely reasonable and to be expected. And again, I'm not saying what we should or shouldn't do, but I am saying it's important to remember what Kissinger said and to be careful about how we play our cards, right? And the other news story that I think kind of got overwhelmed in all the other excitement that happened was the Israeli strike on Qatar, which is now a couple of weeks ago. And the news of that attack was pretty superficial, at least what I heard. And I wanted to dig a bit deeper into that because, since it's Monday Musings, it represents a philosophical issue that we need to understand better. And to summarize, the strike in Qatar happened a bit over a week after the Israeli Air Force cut the head off the Yemeni Houthi leadership in Yemen. So just like it did with Hezbollah in their pager and radio attacks about a year ago, in this latest attack, it looks like the Israelis took out most of Hamas's leadership abroad. And what got the usual suspects all excited about the attack was that even though it was against Hamas leadership, it took place inside Doha, Qatar. And, it just reminds you of like Willie Sutton said, the famous bank robber said about robbing banks. He did that because that's where the money was, right? And Israel struck a sovereign country, one that claims to be an ally of the U.S., because that's where Hamas was. And remember that Qatar had pledged to kick Hamas out of their country back in November of 2024. So once again, I find myself siding with the Israelis. And it was this Hamas leadership living in luxury in Qatar that was directly responsible for the attacks on Israel on 10/7. And while those the Israelis haven't already sent off to paradise, the Israelis have killed a bunch already. And I want to go back to the concept of proportionality, which is generally misunderstood, and I've never seen it correctly reported in the press. But what it means is that you can take an action if the intended result is proportional to the potential damage caused. So you can't level a mosque, let's just say that as an example, to kill a single sniper that's holed up in there, since you can just move your people out of the line of fire of that single sniper. But you can blow up the same mosque and the entire surrounding neighborhood, if necessary, to take out a bunch of missiles that are getting ready to be launched against you or your country if they're hidden in that same mosque, right? So the issue is not the amount of destruction that you cause, but the military value of your intended target. And I bring that up because there have been some complaints that the attack in Qatar wasn't justified. And just so that you can draw your own conclusions, here's a list of the targets that were killed in Qatar. Nizar Awallah, who is a U.S.-branded special designated global terrorist. He's also the guy who negotiated the prisoner exchanges in the past and created those spectacles of switching bodies and all that. There was Mohammed Darwish, who was the head of Hamas's Shura Council and was probably the next in line for Hamas's political bureau. There was Zahar Jabaran, who was Hamas's economic brain, and he's the guy who arranged all that global financing for Hamas's terror attacks. And there was Khalid Mashahal, who is Hamas's leader abroad, who, by the way, is under indictment in the United States for his involvement in the, quote, decades-long campaign, unquote, of terrorism that has claimed hundreds of lives, including American citizens. And again, we don't know for certain if they got them all, but that's a significant number of really bad people. So when people talk about proportionality, I need you to kind of keep those people in mind.
I think, it's so important is right, because I did not know the results. I follow the news as much as anybody, and until today, I didn't know the specific results of what happened, and that's amazing.
It is absolutely it's very serious and very amazing, and I understand some of the administration's frustration was that they were notified while the strikes were, quote, being launched, while they were being launched, which means that we didn't have any operational knowledge of the strike. And it also likely means that they didn't want us to tip anybody off, and why they felt that necessary is a topic for another time. But it is important to know that Netanyahu was very clear that in his words, the operation was a wholly independent Israeli operation. And he said that to help the U.S. keep its distance, which it was pretty extraordinary and a good move on his part. And, of course, we can almost perfectly predict the reactions. Most of the EU has condemned it. Most of the U.S. news is upset because the ceasefire negotiations that haven't been going anywhere might, not go anywhere. And then there was lots of comments from the usual sources, and the ones that were most interesting to me were the comments that it was, quote, counterproductive to the goal of ending the war. Well, about that, most people who talk about ending the war really don't want to end it. What they want is a cessation of current hostilities, which is not the end of any war. The entire openly stated purpose of Hamas, the very reason for its existence, is to wage war against the existence of Israel. It's not just their stated purpose. It's how they raise money. It's how they recruit the people who committed the attacks on 10/7. It's how they justify the way they use the residents of Gaza as human shields. Their whole purpose is to destroy Israel. And once again, folks, there's nothing to negotiate with them. And fortunately, the current Israeli leadership understands that. And because it's Monday Musings, the philosophical issue for us here to understand is that for some reason, we in the West have trouble understanding what victory in war actually means. And this is actually a relatively new development for Western civilization, right? But it's dangerous, right? Victory does not mean that nobody's shooting at you. You can accomplish that just by surrendering, right? Victory means that your enemy abandons their efforts to destroy you, and to do that, you have to convince them that the cost of their aggression far exceeds any potential benefit. And we in the West seem to have trouble, with even conceiving of the idea of victory. And the good news for us in the U.S. is that the Israelis still can. And I think that there is a bunch that we can and should learn from the Israeli response, especially after watching Putin, his latest Article 5 violations in both Poland and Estonia's airspace. The choice is victory or surrender. Right? We need to understand that. When you're up against people who want to kill you, there isn't a lot to negotiate. And anyway, like I said, I know we've had a busy couple of weeks, and I don't want to detract anything from the important understanding of Charlie Kirk's life and his extraordinary wife and her speech. But there are other things going on. I just want to bring us back to that just for a little bit, so
we could
we can think about
reflect.
it.
We're not going anywhere on the Charlie Kirk issue. So if you want to do it in a future Monday Musings with some retrospect, we'll do it that way. Not a problem.
You got it, Bob.
Appreciate it. John Perillo,
Thank you.
Monday Musings. It's the Bob Cordaro Show. We'll return. Our Veterans Tribute this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you by John Basiliga and his incredible companies, including Eastern Roofing Systems. One of the largest and without doubt the best commercial industrial roofers in Eastern United States. And guess what? They could bring all of that expertise to your home here in Northeast Pennsylvania. Eastern Roofing Systems, Jessup. Bruce Bisland, a proud Marine and beloved son of West Scranton. He passed away at age 78, September 15th. He was born in Archbald and grew up with a strong sense of duty and resilience. He answered the call to serve his country as a United States Marine, completing a tour in Vietnam that shaped his character and deepened his appreciation for life's quiet moments. He was also a graduate of Lackawanna College. Bruce found purpose in the kitchen, where he became known for his skills as a cook and his gift for bringing people together. He's survived by his cherished wife, Eileen, whose partnership with Bruce was rooted in devotion, humor, and shared strength. They had 3 daughters who survive as well, 3 grandsons, and many other family members. Bruce Bisland. Donald Quilina. He was 78 when we lost him September 16th. He was from Courtdale. A graduate at Edwardsville High School, he proudly served us in the United States Army. Following military service, he worked as a welder for Intermetro Industries for more than 38 years. He was a member of the Holy Family Parish in Luzerne. Don was known for his love of the outdoors, and he cherished his time in the cabin up the country in Camptown, PA. He loved to read, particularly about World War II and Vietnam. Sadly, tragically, predeceased by an infant grandson and granddaughter. August 16, 1969, Don married his sweetheart, the former Natalie Miller. They shared 56 years of devoted marriage. He's survived by 2 sons, a granddaughter, and a grandson, as well as other family members. Donald Quilina. Our great veterans this hour brought to you by Eastern Roofing Systems, Jessup, PA, and our man John Basiliga. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from our friend meteorologist Joe Snedeker. He says today will be partly sunny with a chance of a late day shower, 77 degrees, 64 outside the studios as I speak. Tonight partly cloudy, low 60. Tuesday, morning sun, then cloudy with on and off afternoon showers and thunderstorms. That's Tuesday, 75. Wednesday, clouds and breaks of sun with a chance of a shower, 75 degrees. The Supremes. Murph says they recorded their hit, I Hear a Symphony, this date, 1965. President Trump and Elon Musk had a handshake and an interaction at the, we don't know if it's rapprochement or if it's more or less or whatever it is, at the Charlie Kirk service out in Phoenix. In the end, much more in common than they have in separate. And I will tell you this. Without Elon Musk and his band of geniuses, without the efforts of Doge, which capsulized the establishment and the left and their union, wasting our money in places like Harrisburg, Scranton, and, of course, Washington, D.C., on their friends. They uncovered it. They tore the lid off. Huge job that Elon Musk did. He's got to be on our side. Couldn't thank him enough. Hey, Bobby, great show as always. Listening on the Odyssey app, so I'm a little behind, but you're talking about the comparison of Charlie Kirk to George Floyd. It's not even a close comparison of the true comparison would be Charlie Kirk, Martin Luther King Jr., more appropriate. George Floyd was a drug addict, garbage human being who even put a gun up to a pregnant woman's belly. And the reason he died was he swallowed a handful of fentanyl and overdosed the police officer. Derek Chauvin maybe deserved punishment, but not what he got. That's Scott the Slabjacker. Yeah, it's something. Somebody pointed out President Bill Clinton forced to come to the center and won re-election in 1996. History shows us the Democrat will only change if you vote them all out of office like the 1994 midterms when they lost the Senate and the House. I agree. It needs to be done that way. It has to happen. We've got to get these people out of the way. Somebody pointing this out. And again, I want to read the definition of insanity. Our listener points out the mayor of Chicago over 600 homicides last year and says we don't need any help from the federal government. This is an acceptable number of deaths at this time and needs not to be addressed. Bob, this man is insane. He is insane by definition, in a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. Yeah. But see, that's one of the reasons the Democrats, the left, wants to change, like say that nothing or everything is normal. Well, no, it's not. Sorry. And we won't let it happen that way. We won't let things be characterized that way. We will not let insanity be characterized as normality. Won't do it. And more truth that they'll call hate speech. Bill from Pittston, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. I was just thinking if George Floyd had stayed in his room that day, nobody even know who the hell he was. He just would have died.
Yeah, well, I don't think he would have shoved the fentanyl down his throat unless he was in the getting caught by the cops. So he probably would have lived. True. He would have lived.
Well,
more likely than not. Now look, it's a human being. It was a tragedy, but then what they turned that fake tragedy into, it's a disgrace, and I am beyond proud of the supporters of Charlie Kirk, conservatives, religious, all that, to react the way they have.
Absolutely. Tucker Carlson gave an excellent sermon on forgiveness from the Lord's Prayer, and I mean, spot on. And the thing is, this whole funeral for Charlie Kirk, like you said, is such a positive thing, but it's a stroke of genius with the Republicans, too, because they're combining it with a political push and campaign for the 2026 elections, because it's such a startling contrast with the Democrats like Crockett dismissing that poor woman who lost her daughter to an illegal alien, dismissing the dead girl as a piece of trash. And the Democrats continually show their inhumanity and their stupidity. And then compared to what the Republicans and the conservatives saying about Charlie Kirk and talking about forgiveness, it's such a startling contrast. This is a great way to promote Republican values for the 2026 election.
Well, it's insanity versus normal. That's another one. Crockett, and I could go through the list of Democrat leaders. They're insane. They're literally insane by the textbook definition, not by my rendering. Period. She certainly fits into the category. Oh, yeah, she actually said that law enforcement is not intended to prevent crime. I mean, how can someone be that insane? It's and not be put in an institution.
Yeah, I was at the Greg Gutfeld performance on Saturday night, and he blames the media. He says the media is dead, and they're the ones that are defining or trying to redefine what insanity is. They're trying to tell us insanity is what is the norm. And he said nobody cares. The media is officially dead, and I couldn't agree 100. I agree 100%.
Yep.
I hate the media.
Well, and look at the lack of self-awareness is also part of the leftism. A critical part, because they don't self-reflect. Well, is this wrong? Is this right? Am I lying? They don't even bother to reflect. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. We're going to take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK, will return. Hadn't heard that song in a long time. B.W. Stevenson, this date 1973, moving up the charts, Murph says, with his hit My Maria. A good, happy song, isn't it? Bob Carr back with you on WILK. Mother Teresa, St. Teresa for September 22nd. She said, joy is very infectious. We will never know just how much good a simple smile can do. Be faithful in little things. Smile at the people who cross your path. You have a beautiful smile. Don't waste it. Live beautifully. Smile at life. Smile everywhere you go. Smile at everyone you meet. Mother Teresa, St. Teresa for today. How beautiful and how important. You never know what that smile could do for someone. You really don't. Hey, our friend Gary texts me, says, food for thought. Now, he lives in the Hazleton area, and he owns 2 houses in Stockton where the British-owned Atlantic Carbon is headquartered. We were talking about that with Joe from Berwick. It says, to correct Joe on a few facts, Atlantic Carbon owns a second active mine operation in Jeansville, PA, over the Stockton Mountains South. And they acquired mining property of the Hazleton Shaft, all active coal mining operations. Gary continues, he said the show historian, David DeCosmo, was off a bit as well. During the election, the company sported a huge banner on one of their buildings in Stockton with the words, Trump digs coal. And then he concludes, the Latimer Mine Massacre Memorial is in the town of Latimer at the intersection of Main Street and Quality Road. Thank you so much. So much. Good stuff. Eckley Village, of course, where they follow the Molly Maguires. Yeah, a lot of information there. The regional butcher shop that Joe was looking for is Fiero's Food Market, located in Latimer. They made their homemade hot dogs with cheese and peppers, sold out immediately and to die for, so to speak. And he says the last he heard that the Fiero's Food Market is open 1 day a week on Fridays, and they order and pickups only on limited hours. Fascinating. And finally, Gary's given us more information we ever wanted to know, but it's great stuff. Celebrity claims to fame for Latimer. It's the birthplace of Ukrainian descent, Vladimir Palunyk, better known as Jack Palance, winner of the 1992 Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for his role in City Slickers. I got to meet Jack Palance once. It was a thrill. Thank you, Gary. That's all great stuff. Hey, one other item of note. So I got I don't understand why it sort of comes under a different name. Chris Kelly, the aforementioned Chris Kelly, the left-wing lunatic columnist who we're praying recovers from his illness. Mental illness is what I mean. He says, Bob, I didn't have your email, so I'm replying to an old message. I copied Nancy to make sure you get it. Several people reached out to let me know you were ranting about me again. I'm mentally ill. I should be fired. You know, you're an embarrassment to journalism. And he says, apparently this latest tantrum was triggered by my Charlie Kirk column. Now, he said that this is, all right, see, this is the childishness of a leftist. I've never heard your show and forget you have one unless I'm reminded. Is my ego supposed to be bruised by this? He says, but this latest tantrum gave me an idea. Why don't you invite me on your show and you could dress me down face to face? That way I can respond in real time for your tens of listeners to hear. Now, I wrote back this. I said, I will consider that. My problem with you personally, however, I responded, besides your basic dishonesty, is that you failed to respond when I asked to have you and or family members of a tribute to a guy named Ray Plevyak. I told you he writes when he's not on politics and when he doesn't slide into his TDS and his mental illness, he could write a decent column. It was about Ray Plevyak. I wanted to do a veterans tribute, and he ignored my email. So I told him that you didn't bother to return my email regarding this was beyond disappointing. I'll consider your offer if I can find some value in it, and I mean that. Like you said, well, okay, we're going to put a mental patient on the air, or someone who should be. What value can be gleaned from this effort? And by the way, Chris, you could call in anytime on your own. Anytime. And we'll see how it goes. I to set it up and to give insanity a level playing field, I've got to actually consider, well, what is this? What value is there? I don't know. I really don't know. And your columns are full of bile. They're full of lies. That you stretch to attack anywhere you can. The column on Charlie Kirk was disgusting and despicable. And so now we give a platform to that. By the way, a bigger platform than you have. I'll think. And I've got to think about it. And it's like, look, I mean, I control the show. It's not we care about or worried about things like, oh, well, he might say, well, no. I'm not worried about it one bit. Not one bit. I'm just saying, hey, is there any value in it? We'll see. I've got something to think about, though. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We will return. Great good morning, everyone. 11:11 a.m. on my Picardo Jewelers watch this beautiful Monday, September 22nd, year of our Lord 2025. This is the Bob Cordaro Show. I am he, and it's a big day to fight for America, defend our values, and with the help of our man John Basiliga and his great companies, including Eastern Roofing Systems, to honor the brave who have made us and kept us free. People like veterans we've lost, but celebrate today thanks to John. Like Donald Quilina, Courtdale, Bruce Bisland, West Scranton, Bob Jennings, Honesdale, Peter Cunningham, Einan, James Mack, Dunmore, and Louis Leterio, Dunmore. So with history, our great founding fathers, and the incomparable Constitution of the United States of America as our guides, let us continue today's battle. Gaveling back to order this meeting of the Club for Common Sense, promising you that for the balance of this hour, our commitment to common sense will provide a sanctuary of sanity for all of you to luxuriate in, to bathe in, whatever you'd like to do. But you've got to be have some shelter from the storm of insanity. Future Mayor Vince Amico texted in. He said that regarding whether we put Kelly on the show or not, that he deserves to be stifled and ignored. Your program would give him an opportunity to spread his insanity among the sane. Let him stay in the shed. That's my initial reaction. Like, what value are we going to get by putting someone who displays mental illness in his newspaper columns on the air? And as someone says, you're giving him a better job, a better platform than he has. So I've really got to think about the value. But I mention again, and I will email him. He can call in anytime he'd like. And we'll see what the subject is, and just like with all of our callers, determine whether we go forward with it or not. So a bunch of you also text in the similar sentiment. But then somebody said, Bob, I think you should have him on to expand your listener base. I don't think it's going to expand our listener base. But they continue and help change the minds of the ones in the center. And they are the ones we're shooting for. There's no doubt about it. I doubt if the left radicals will come over, but the ones in the center might vote more Republican in the 2026 midterms. Because we have Chris Kelly on, probably not. And I told you, I wanted to honor a veteran that he wrote a good column about, and he never got back to me out of personal animus. So there's no point. We'll consider it. Anyway, it's Monday. We all watch football this weekend, and guess what that means? And it means former Penn State star, former Green Bay Packers star, former professional New Jersey State Hall of Fame coach, professional coach, ran an amazing football camp for decades. Chet Parlavecchio's with us, and he's our man. How are you, Chester?
What's up, Bobby? What's going on, partner? How's the weekend?
It was great. Absolutely great. They're exhausting, though. You know, I can't wait till I can't wait till Monday comes, and then I can recover from the weekend.
Yeah, crazy.
Well, Chet, you spent some time watching some football this weekend. Tell me what strikes your mind and what you saw in the college game over the weekend.
We'll start the college game. Again, a little recap. There wasn't a lot of highlight games, but I thought there were two very interesting games. Indiana and Illinois, both ranked teams in the top 25. But I was really impressed with Indiana. And what I was most impressed with, a year ago, there was a lot of debate whether Indiana even belonged being in the playoff system and how good were they really. I'll tell you what, this football team impressed the hell out of me. They were athletic, they were big, they were physical, And I really was a big fan of Illinois up until Saturday. I thought Illinois had made incredible strides. Beals was a good coach. He was building a program. I really thought Illinois was going to take that next step. But I got to tell you something. I don't know. I forget if Indiana's on Penn State's schedule, but I'll tell you what, that's one that's dangerous. They're a big physical football team, and they're better than they were a year ago. So I'll tell you what, I thought that was a top storyline in college football. And then obviously the next two would be what's going on in Clemson. I mean, Dabo Swinney right now has to be on the hot seat. That's a terrible loss to Syracuse in Clemson, and the way it happened, I mean, you really got your butt kicked. It wasn't a freak thing. Syracuse played damn good football. They went down there in a tough environment, and they took it to Clemson.
How about that?
You're a 1-3 football team, a team that was a top 5 preseason pick with a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. Something is going on. And I kind of giggle because a dear friend of mine lives in South Carolina. He said, Chad would laugh if you listen to one of Dabo Swinney's interviews, post games from a year ago. He said, if you people don't like what I do here, then make a change. We've been the most consistent team in the country. If I were him, I wouldn't go say that right now because I think they're going to make a change. Don't push it. Dabo, cool down and don't push it.
Let's ask a question. I mean, on the games you're focusing, how is Syracuse doing, just for example, regarding NIL money? How much are they paying their players? I'll tell you what,
they're getting football players in there. The guy's doing a great job. Again, you listen to a broadcast, and it seems like every other player is either a transfer or somebody acquired some way. I mean, it's harder to keep track of than the National Football League.
Yeah.
But Syracuse is dipping into the pot. Hey, listen, Bobby, if you want to be a competitive college football program, or more importantly, you want to survive as a head coach, you don't get 5 years anymore. You don't get to wait to see your freshman class grow up and then in 4 years ask me how I did. You got to go get help now, today, and that's why that thing is becoming so dangerous. It aids it disables the ability to develop young players. It enables players that maybe for one moment don't like what's going on to take off. So again, we've discussed that. We could do a whole show on what's becoming in college football. But let me continue because I want to go along with the third thing, Oregon Penn State preview. Again, we're going to get to see Penn State play somebody this week that hits back. That should be interesting itself. But what I like is your classic matchup. You got an up-tempo, NASCAR type of offense in Oregon who might be better than they were a year ago, which doesn't bode well for the Penn State secondary. You have a game here where it's critical that Penn State establishes the two running backs. They establish the line of scrimmage and they control the football. The best way to beat Oregon is to make sure the offense stays on the sideline. So, again, taking special care in the run game, establishing both running backs, get your play-action game going, but use the clock. Again, take 30 seconds for every snap. That, to me, would be the recipe for winning. The best way to play them is to make sure the offense stays on the sideline. So it should be a great game. I mean, it's going to be a great Saturday night. It's going to be an excellent football game.
All right, Chester. Chester, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk pro football.
You got it.
Because that was on everybody's mind, and it was a fun weekend. Chet Parlavecchio, our guest. We're going to take a break. We'll be back. One of my favorite songs ever. Grand Funk Railroad. Murph says they moved up to number 2 this date, 1973, with their hit, We're an American Band. Bob Cordaro back with you on the program. Chet Parlavecchio. It's the Monday wrap-up with Chet, and let's go to the NFL quickly. What did you see? What interested you?
Well, let's look at two things real quick, Bobby. I want to look on the local front, real things that kind of catch your story, create a storyline. You watch Philadelphia yesterday and the Rams. That definitely, to me, is a glimpse into the future. That could be your NFC title game. There's no doubt about it. Both teams are very talented. I remember Mike Munchak telling me Mike was doing some work for the Rams with their offensive line. He said, Chet, this is a talented football team. He said, if they could stay healthy, this team is going to be there. Well, I think you saw a little piece of that yesterday. That being said, you saw the championship pedigree of the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, they know how to win. They know how to make plays. There was no panic, no quit in their game. And they came back, and obviously they took a great game and a great football game. So, again, that definitely could be a preview. You look on the Steelers side, which was very interesting. You got Aaron Rodgers yesterday had Pop Warner numbers. He had 132 yards. You sit there saying, what is he doing? He throws a bad interception to the linebacker from New England. New England had every chance in the world to win that game, probably should have won it. But yet, in the end, he makes 2 back shoulder throws that only he can do.
Yeah.
And again, he made really 2 big throws the entire game, and they was enough to steal that game in New England. Again, Steelers have issues. They cannot run the football, and they can't stop the run. They're not a good football team right now. They're a team, again, maybe they're getting cohesive with him. Maybe it's going to take time. You could see he gets a little frustrated at times. So as far as that goes, like I said, that's a work in progress.
Well, Chet Parlavecchio, let me ask you this question because I remember Peyton Manning played past his sell date. Is the same thing true for the ex-Packer?
Well, this is a Hall of Fame guy that survived. You could ask that about Russell Wilson in New York. You could ask that about a number of these future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. There's no denying he's on the back end. Remember something. Aaron Rodgers used to be dangerous as hell extending plays. He was tremendous with his legs. There was nobody better. Ben Roethlisberger might have been the only guy equal to him as far as extending plays and making big plays late in the play. So, that era is gone. You could see the feet just don't go that way anymore. So, yeah, as far as his mobility outside the pocket, absolutely he's not the same guy. Can he make some throws? Yeah. But I do think you have to have the complementary running game to make him effective. If you're going to ask him to sit back there and throw all day with no run game, I think you're going to have issues. Yeah. And like I said, that's where they're at right now. So let me continue, Bobby. In the New York phase, this is real simple with New York. They both are not very good. You have a situation where they just don't have the personnel. The only thing that was exciting about the Jets situation, again, blocking the kick, they made it interesting at the end of the year. But what was interesting in that game is Baker Mayfield. You talk about a guy that probably doesn't break 5 flat in the 40, yet his escapability and pocket presence ranks him up there with Lamar Jackson. He moves in the pocket. He made 4 plays yesterday in the pocket, and then to escape out of the pocket, that you would think this guy is a 4.5 40. He just has an incredible presence. He understands where his protections are, and if you know where you're being protected, you know where your escapes are, and he's a master at that. And he's a winner. The guy just knows how to win football games. And then we go into the Giants part. I mean, like I said, they just don't have any weapons. You had a desperate Kansas City team who make no bones about this. They are not the vintage Kansas City team we've seen in the past. But the Giants right now are in such shambles that that's a work in progress. But, Bobby, if I could hit 1 second real quick. The 2 storylines of the day are this, and this is what I thought pretty interesting. Only because I was a special teams coach in the National Football League, so I know a little bit about what I'm watching, obviously. You looked yesterday, you saw a bunch of kicks being blocked.
Yes.
You saw a bunch of kicks being returned. Understand, for the audience, to understand what takes place and what the dilemma is and why you would say professional players can't cover kicks or why are these kicks being blocked. Well, let's look at the kick blocking. We said last week how the distance now has increased. These guys are banging 50-yarders, 60-yarders, like the old days when we were banging 35-yarders. But understand what happens. The trajectory of the ball is lower. The further the field goal, the lower the trajectory of the ball, which means it's susceptible to interior blocks. So if you saw all the blocks yesterday, Philadelphia, New England, all the blocks occurred straight up the middle, not off the edge, up the middle. Why? Because that's where the ball's going to be. It's going to be low, and again, get your hands up, get a push inside. So that's something you see as a byproduct of all this successful long-distance kicking. There's also another side to it. Protection-wise, you got to work on things now. You can't put your head down. You got to keep your head up. You can't allow jumpers. So it's going to be interesting to see the way that develops. As part of the return game, all the touchdowns yesterday and the long returns you saw. Well, understand something. Most of these men in an NFL roster have never run down on a kick in their lives. Because wherever they were from, whether it be college or even high school, they were the stars of those teams. You don't ask your stars to run down on kickoffs. So the majority of those guys that you've seen in the NFL have never done anything on special teams before in their lives. That's the dilemma. And what happens in preseason, they do it even less because you're using all the rookies and all the free agents to see if they can do it. So special teams in the NFL is a very, very weird combination of things. It's a combination of evaluation and then not putting yourself in a position where you're going to get a big-time player or somebody more important in the field hurt. And that's where your backups. And you tell these guys in training camp, gentlemen, you're going to have to cover kicks in this league. You're going to have to protect for punts. You're going to have to do all those things in this league. So you're dealing with a bunch of men that most of the time don't do it during preseason, and then you get them to finally do it. So it's going to take time for these guys to assimilate to special teams and how you prepare and what other teams are doing and why they're doing it. And it takes time. And that's I thought that a sidelight to the league.
And that's on both sides of the ball. So you're right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other thing, Bobby, that ended up quick, I thought yesterday was the day of the backup quarterback. What some great stories behind there. Carson Wentz coming on and doing a great job, stealing that game in Minnesota, doing a great job playing efficient football. Mac Jones, that's a nice story, coming in, banged up for Purdy, takes San Francisco on that last run. Even Tyrod Taylor, he threw a bad pick, which cost the Jets 7, but at least he made things happen. Yeah. He rushed for 45 yards. He threw the ball around. And then the last two, Mariota. Great to see Marcus Mariota play a great game for Jaden Daniels. He came in, did a great job. And then Jake Brown, the only one that had a tough day was Jake Browning. But believe me, Cincinnati's issues are not on the offensive side of the ball. They couldn't stop a cold right now. So that's the stories around the league, my dear friends. That's what we're talking about. And that's
always
what's happening
a pleasure.
in the NFL.
Always a pleasure, Chester. Chet Parlavecchio, Penn State, Green Bay Packer, and New Jersey proud. Thank you, my man.
Keep us safe, partner.
We'll talk next week. Thank you, friend. Chet Parlavecchio. And by the way, we play this theme song. He was on Dancing with the Stars to this song. That's why it's a very un-Chet-like song, or so one would think. We'll take a break and be back. Our Veterans Tribute this hour and every hour, this day and every day. Brought to you by our man, John Basiliga, and his great companies, including Eastern Roofing Systems, the premier roofer for commercial, industrial, and institutional purposes in the entire eastern United States. And guess what? They bring that expertise to your home in Northeast Pennsylvania because they're based in Jessup. Two men I knew for pretty much all my life. James Mack. He was 91 when he passed May 22nd of last year. He was from Dunmore. He and his wife, the former Mary Castellano, celebrated 65 years of marriage on that October 4th before he passed. Born in Scranton, graduate of Scranton Central High School and the University of Scranton. He served as a medic with the United States Army during the Korean War. For over 38 years, he was employed at the University of Scranton print shop and then went on to establish his own business, the James Mack Printing Company, which continues to be in operation and trusted to his son, James Jr., to this day. He was a member of St. Anthony and St. Rocco Parish in Dunmore, Eucharistic minister, a Dunmore Rotarian, as well as the Keystone chapter of Unico, where he served as past president and member of the board. In addition to his wife, he's survived by his sons, daughter, grandchildren, and other family members. A guy I looked up to my whole life, James Mack. Louis Leterrio. He was from Dunmore. We lost him at the age of 80, June 13th last year. His wife of 55 years, Elaine, she passed away in 2024. Louis Leterrio was born in Philadelphia, but he was a graduate of Dunmore High School and attended the University of Scranton. He was a United States Army veteran. Prior to retirement, Lou was a postal clerk at the Scranton Post Office. In high school, Lou played baseball and basketball for his beloved Dunmore Bucks. Avid runner and traveler with his wife, Elaine. He had no children of his own, and so he was a second father to all of his nieces, nephews, great-nieces, and great-nephews, taking care of them and treating them as his own children. He'll be missed by all who love him. Survived by sisters, nieces, nephews, and many, many family members. He was preceded in death by his wife, as mentioned. A guy I looked up to every Sunday at Mass, Louis Leterrio. Storm Tracker 16 forecast from meteorologist Joe Snedeker. He says today partly sunny with a chance of a late day shower, 77 degrees. Tonight partly cloudy, low 60. Tuesday morning sun, then cloudy with on and off afternoon showers and thunderstorms, 75. Wednesday clouds and breaks of sun with a chance of a shower, high 75. We're back. Numbers of Bob, having Kelly on is like having Frank call in. It would be horrible. And someone else texts in, as you say, don't wrestle with a pig. You get muddy, and the pig enjoys it. LTS. I know. Hall & Oates. Murph says, I didn't even know this. 1980, they released their version of the great Righteous Brothers hit, You Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. September 22nd, 1980. Okay. I believe it. It's not bad. I mean, it's a cover, but it ain't the Righteous Brothers. Bob Cordaro back with you. Couple of sayings. My man Nicky sent this in. Says, Charlie Kirk tried to show that the left could be reasoned with. In the end, the left finally proved him wrong about something. You know it. My man R.W. text in, Democrats are the only group on the planet that can gun down an innocent man, celebrate his death, mock his wife, destroy memorials for him, lie about who killed him, and somehow still make themselves the victims. Beyond true. I always, though, substitute. I don't like throwing the word Democrat around, if you could believe it, in a negative context. Because it's absolutely critical we get a normal Democrat Party. I try not to alienate Democrats, normal Democrats. We may have some disagreements with, but we don't have fundamental disagreements with them. Those we have fundamental disagreements with, who cares? Who cares? Because the people you're shooting for is what we talked about, the people in the middle, the people not paying attention. Because if you have really a mental illness, if you've got a denial of fact, truth, and reality, there isn't much we can do for you. You can do it for yourself, and many have. But it's up to you, not us. So I would say leftists are the only group on the planet that can gun down an innocent man, celebrate his death, mock his wife, destroy memorials for him, lie about who killed him, and somehow still make themselves the victim. Yeah. A guy making $20 million a year is the victim. Jimmy Kimmel. A guy who thought it was in his opening comedy monologue, who thought it was great to mock Charlie Kirk, someone who just got assassinated. And by the way, very reliable reports, he was asked to back down. Affiliates and others. He made the statement on Monday. They got rid of him on Wednesday. He refused to back down from his lies that it was a MAGA Republican that killed Charlie. Refused. Mark from Hazelton texts in, reminding us it is Lord Chesterfield, whose birthday we're celebrating today. Wrongs are often forgiven, but contempt never is. Our pride remembers it forever, says Lord Chesterfield, statesman and writer, Mark from Hazelton. Thankfully sending that in. Good stuff. Another Satan sees the crowd at Charlie Kirk's memorial and realizes he made a huge mistake. Yeah. And another AOC loses debate against cardboard cutout of Charlie Kirk. I mean, she's just a dumb person. And when you're called on to speak and speak and speak and speak with no depth whatsoever, you just sound like an idiot. That's her and Crockett and so many others. Democrats all, I hate to say. Sad stuff. All right, we'll take a break. Bob Cordaro, WILK. We'll return. Dave Coverdale. Murph says singer, songwriter for Deep Purple. Born Saltburn by the Sea, North Riding of Yorkshire, England. Smoke on the Water. Coverdale born 1951. Bob Cordaro back with you. We're going to finish. Bulldog, we don't have Joan Jett. You should have played Joan Jett. It's her birthday today. Born 1960. Because we're finishing with the Charlie Daniels Band. I love this song. They moved up to number 3 this date in 1979 with their hit "The Devil Went Down to Georgia." Got to finish with that. But we'll acknowledge Joan Jett's birthday and go from there. Now, continuing discussions with Chris Kelly. Bob, I sincerely apologize for failing to respond regarding Pleviak. Honest oversight, not an excuse, but an explanation. He says, if you're going to continue impugning my honesty, integrity, and sanity and call for the cancellation of my nearly 30-year career in local journalism, you owe me equal time. No, I don't owe you anything. See, that's where you're wrong. You've got your little platform, and I have mine. I don't owe you anything. I owe the public to call you out for being insane. Again, this childish ego prigging. He says, you can be a man and have me on or hide behind your microphone. And then, see, this is what pisses me off. This is why he's an a-hole. Ask yourself, what would Charlie Kirk do? After you impugned him, you're going to bring up his name? As Will Smith said, keep his name out your mouth. Will say, and he wants to come in the studio. I'm not interested in that. I'm really not. I don't do it. I do it when somebody begs, but I don't like it. It disrupts the show. I've got a lot to do during the commercial. I've got to argue with the Bulldog, lots of things. In any event. Oh, Lord. So it's what it is. We'll see if he agrees to call in. We'll do it. I'm not doing, face to face like a man. That really gets me worked up. Oh, God almighty. This is proof of childishness. Whew. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. We'll communicate. I'll communicate with anybody. That doesn't mean you get to use the show. Somebody says, Bob, I believe Charlie Kirk left us with much hope and strength. Maybe people will wake up and see what we need to gather courage, renew faith in a higher power, God, and regain our nation as our forefathers planned. God bless Charlie. And then, again, thanks for the great show, LTS. LTS back at you. The great show's you as much as me. In any event. Our great veterans today, brought to you by our guy, John Basiliga. And we focused on his great company, Eastern Roofing Systems. 2 guys I knew, actually 3 people I knew out of this group. Louis Laterio, Dunmore. James Mack, Dunmore. Donald Colina, Courtdale. Bruce Bisland, West Scranton. Peter Cunningham, Einan. And Bob Jennings, guy been around forever, Honesdale. Love those veterans, man, I'm telling you. So we'll take your input on whether to put Chris on. My inclination is to do so, just because that's what we do here. But I want one area of insanity to be discussed, for one. And maybe it could be Charlie Kirk. Maybe it could be something else. But if we want to focus on the discussion, number 1. And it's going to be by phone, number 2. All right. I have to laugh as though I'm afraid to face him face to face. It's like, this is the child you're dealing with. What do we do here? That's why it's difficult with someone who does not grounded in reality to discuss things in a realistic fashion is very hard. Well, my great Picardo Jewelers watch tells me it is noon, which means the Sue Henry Show next, the Rob O'Donnell Show after that. Guys, have a great afternoon. God willing, I'll be with you tomorrow at 9, but for the moment, I must gavel to a close this meeting of the Club for Common Sense. Thank you, Charlie Daniels.